The House is set to vote this week on the SAVE Act, requiring voters to show proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. President Trump is stressing the importance of securing our elections.
I want to see elections be honest, and if a state can't run an election, I think the people behind me should do something about it. Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at Pennsylvania. Take a look at Philadelphia. You go take a look at Atlanta. Look at some of the places that horrible corruption on elections. And the federal government should not allow that. The federal government should get involved.
Yeah, it's funny you point out Atlanta. Let's take a look at Fulton County, maybe. But Democrats, they're largely opposed to this bill, including that one senator from Georgia, my senator. He even thought John Ossoff. He thought, even though he requires attendees to his campaign event to show photo ID, I believe this week. Joining us now is Texas Congressman Pat Fallon. He sits on the House Oversight and Armed Services Committees. Congressman, thank you for joining us. So we're looking at this bill, the SAVE Act. I know there was talk about including it into the negotiation for the funding bill. Now it looks like maybe it's going to be a standalone bill to get out of the House with Republican support. Where is this bill? What levers in Congress do you all have to try to actually get it passed?
Well, we'll pass it out of the House because we're a majority-driven institution, and every Republican that I'm aware of is for it because this is eminently reasonable. It's commonsensical. When you look at the polling, the American people are also really right behind President Trump, and so much as 83 to 84% of any legitimate poll says that Americans approve of voter ID. They accept it. They think it's a good idea. And when the Democrats oppose it, and Chuck Schumer says crazy things like this is Jim Crow 2.0, it's exposing his soft bigotry of low expectations. And also, if he would resort to that kind of hyperbole, it's really shame on him.
Congressman, you mentioned Chuck Schumer. His counterpart in your chamber, Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, he was just on another network and was asked about how many Democrats out in the country support voter ID. It's 70+%. 3/4 of black voters. He was challenged on that point, and he came back and said this is voter suppression, and he also said this is a violation of federalism. He said it's the states that are responsible for administering elections, not the federal government. He's right about that. I'm not sure an ID component to confirm you're a citizen to register to vote is something that would interfere with that. But I find it very interesting that Jeffries would be making this plea about states' rights, given the last time his party ran the House of Representatives, their first bill, H.R. 1, was a total federal takeover of elections to benefit their party. Who does he think he's kidding here?
Well, if the Democrats didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. I mean, obviously, that's very hypocritical of Leader Jeffries to say that. When you look at the breakdown, even when you look at, like you mentioned about black voters, Hispanic voters, white voters, we all hover around 80% approval because we live in America in 2025 where you need an ID to go on an airplane. You need an ID if you want to purchase alcohol. You need an ID for pretty much every facet of your life. So why would you think it would be more difficult for a minority to have an ID? It's very insulting. And what it says is Democrats truly believe that they get about 1 to 5% additional voting because of lax rules in states like California and Oregon where you don't even vote in person anymore. You vote by mail. So if you want $100 million in the lottery, you can redeem it two ways. What's the most secure way? You can walk in and give them the ticket, or you can mail it in. Nobody ever mails in a $100 million ticket. We should have that same standard for our federal elections.
I agree with you, Congressman. If you can riot in person, you can vote in person, and you can show an ID. I'm always proud to do it in the great state of Tennessee. I want to ask you again about the SAVE Act. It's very important to me. I'm very close with Scott Pressler, who I know has been pushing Senator Thune on this, hoping to get this across the finish line. So I guess I want to ask you, how far are Republicans in Congress willing to go to force this issue? And how far should they be willing to go to get this across the finish line?
We should go to the mats. Again, it'll go out of the House. I think some Democrats will even vote for it. We'll see. It'll be a handful, probably not more than 10, but every Republican will. So then it's a question of, can you get the 60 votes in the Senate? We got 53 pretty much for sure with the GOP. Can we get 7 Democrats, or will they end debate and just let it go to the floor? And we should really fight, because if we don't have honest, fair, transparent, and elections that we can all believe in, we're in jeopardy of losing our republic. So there's nothing more important than passing the SAVE Act and doing it as quickly as possible.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Is it worth blowing up the filibuster to get it across the finish line?
Well, that's a question I guess the senators are going to have to answer. I would seriously consider it because it's that important.
Wow. Okay. Congressman, I do want to switch gears and talk about Iran. You know, the U.S. and Iran just had some talks, and the Islamic Republic says they're not going to back down from their nuclear ambitions. They're saying this: no country has the right to dictate their behavior. They're also adding that America's military deployment in the region, they say it does not scare them, Congressman. You know, we also want them to stop funding terrorist organizations in the region, but they won't even talk about that. So, you know, I'm wondering, where do you see this kind of leaves the talks? Iran says they're willing to continue those talks. But the question now is, you know, what options are before the U.S.? I mean, should we consider a strike if a deal is not reached? Is that where we're headed here?
Well, that's mullah bluster as far as they're saying that they're not going to be intimidated by the United States. Ask Soleimani if he's intimidated by the United States. Ask the mullahs about their nuclear facilities if they weren't intimidated by the United States. President Trump means business. He's shown it with Soleimani. He's shown it with the nuclear strikes. He's shown it in Venezuela. Ask Maduro if President Trump means what he says. So what President Trump and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Dan Kane and Pete Hegseth are doing, all options on the table. Iran is in a very precarious position. The mullahs have proven that they're willing to sacrifice tens of thousands of their own people. They'll murder them to stay in power. They're the very epitome of evil, and President Trump needs to stay on the course, which he's going to do, and we'll see if this regime survives 2026.
Congressman Pat Fallon, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.